Hi, friends. Welcome in. Hey, Blueberry. Hello. How are you doing? Welcome in. For today, we are going to relax and read a book called Fae of Berwith. Expiration Point book will explain what the book is about a little bit. It's a fantasy book. Um, It's about fake courts and secrets and dangerous choices. So essentially, a girl is being married off to an evil fae prince, and there's a lot of shenanigans around that. So it's a fantasy, magical, kind of dangerous like drama. So we're going to read through that and see how that goes. I have not even read the first page, so we're just going to experience this together. And I'll put some fireplace ASMR in the background. So you're welcome to relax, listen in, or parallel play games, whatever else you want to do. So let me go ahead and do that. Actually, no, I'll stay here. I don't go anywhere. All right. Let me change. Okie dokie. All right, so the Fae of Ruith is a series, like a 5-book series. So we're doing book 1, and it's called House of Lies and Sorrow. All right, chapter 1, Jade. How do you think he'll kill you? Tessa asked me. I continued focusing on the knot I was tying, even though I was certain the blood had rushed from my face. I'm not really sure. I haven't thought about it, I lied. Of course, I had thought about how I was going to die. I had pictured all the ways he could end my meaningless life. Would it be as simple as a dagger to the chest? Or something less merciful? But my sister never saw me as weak. She wasn't about to start now, so I put a joking smile on my face before I added, I wonder if he'll do it himself, or if he'll send someone else to finish his dirty work. Tessa leaned in with the same grin she always wore while gossiping. At least, my upcoming death was important news to her. Hopefully, he does it himself. I heard he's handsome as sin. I playfully shoved her away. You've been listening to too many rumors, little sister. Those big ears of yours will get you into trouble. We both know nobody knows anything about the Prince of Shadows. Tessa didn't respond. She looked down at her own knot she was tying, studying it closely. Except she wasn't still tying it either. She had dropped the rope into her lap and had begun picking at her fingernails. The silence grew heavier with every second. You never know, Jade. Maybe he'll end up really liking you. Maybe he'll fall madly in love, and he'll protect you with his life. Her voice took a turn from light and playful to serious and emotional. You have to try. You have to try to survive. Promise me you'll try to make him like you. That you'll fight. Her large, deep eyes searched my face for an answer. They searched for any slither of hope that I wasn't being sent to my imminent death. But I soon knew the truth, that I was being sent into the Fae lands to marry one of the Fae princes. If that wasn't enough, I was going to marry the Prince of Shadows, the merciless, deadly prince who walked through the world with no consequence. And like every human wife he had before me, I was going to be killed. Any other scenario would have been a useless attempt of having hope. There was no way around it. I was going to die. But nonetheless, I smiled at my sister. Of course, I'll try, Tessa. I'll do everything I can. You know, I'm not one to give up easily. She seemed pleased with my words, and she quickly resumed tending to her own knot. Tessa was a worrier. I knew that my father had chosen me along with many other things. She was softer. She was likable. She didn't have sharp edges or scars. She didn't come with damage. She was perfect. I, on the other hand, was not even close to perfect. I was damaged. I was easily expendable, which was why I was being sent to my death. Okay, I was being sent to my marriage, but what's the difference? Give me that, I demanded, after watching her fumble with the rope and a few times. She gave it to me without hesitating and watched in awe as I tied the perfect knot in a matter of seconds. Here, I said, handing it back to her. You're going to have to learn this type of thing when I'm gone. We all know Father isn't any help. She giggled again, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I know, I know. I wish you can stay longer to help me. I wish I could stay longer too. Unfortunately for us, time is not our friend. We put this off for far long enough. I still don't understand why it has to be you, Tessa said, her emotions seeping into every word. Thick tears began welling in her eyes. Why can't someone else marry the Fae Prince? Why does it have to be you? I dropped the knot and pulled her into my arms. She didn't know the details about the deal my father had made with the Fae King. I took a deep breath and told myself to calm down. Just thinking about it made my blood boil. How could he be so reckless? Of course he had been caught, and the king learned that he had 2 daughters. They made a deal. My life for his. Of course, it wasn't me that they wanted. I was just the one father picked, no one's surprise either. But Tessa didn't know that part, and I certainly was not about to tell her. It's not like she would jump up and take my place or anything, so she wouldn't at least feel guilty. Well, I hope she would. But even if Tessa was ignorant, useless, skinny, and slightly selfish, I was determined to keep her safe. She had experienced enough hardships in this life, even though I had done everything in my power to protect her. And if this was going to help protect her, I would do it with a smile on my face, a fake smile at least. It's getting dark, I said after a few minutes. I'm going for one more hunt before tomorrow. I won't be long. Go inside and make sure Father is asleep by the time I get back. Okay, she agreed, rolling her eyes. Be careful out there. I always am, I said before grabbing the rest of our rope and throwing it over my shoulder, bending down to kiss her cheek before turning my back on our cottage and heading towards the tree line. My mind was racing. From that day, I learned of the deal my father had made with the Fae King. I knew I would die for his mistakes. I just always thought I would have more time. Now I had only a handful of hours left in my life, but there was no time to panic. Tessa needed food. My biggest fear wasn't dying. It wasn't marrying one of those evil creatures on the planet. It wasn't traveling to the Feylands. My biggest fear was Tessa dying because of me. If I died, when I died, Tessa would have nothing. I had tried to prepare her for this, but there was only so much I could do. Father was nothing but a drunken burden. He had no provider. He was no provider. He was no father. Ever since I can carry a knife, I would wander into the forest and gather food for Tessa and me. Without it, we certainly would have starved to death. Not like that was rare in human lands, but still. I was all Tessa had, and I was not going to let her die too. I buried my emotions and focused on the land around me. We were lucky to live close enough to so much empty land, making it easier to hunt for food instead of paying for meats at the market. Saints, everyone knew we didn't have time, had money for that. I never caught anything too big, mostly rabbits with snares that Tessa and I would make. But it kept us alive. It kept us fed, which was better than most people who live in these lands. It wasn't rare to see children so skinny that you could count every bone. It wasn't so rare to be killed over a loaf of bread if a family was desperate enough. Tessa would need as much as possible after I left if she was going to make it. The ground turned from the plowed dirt path to the full leafy forest that surrounded our land. Walking my familiar path deep into the woods, I approached the snares I have set up already. Please have something, I silently pleaded, anything. My old worn boots scrunched on every leaf and broken branch beneath me. Those were the sounds that have grown to comfort me all these years later. This was the place where I learned to find my peace. Relief flooded my body once I saw the dead rabbit that I'd caught. I wasn't leaving empty-handed, so that was something. There were many nights when I hadn't been so lucky. I pushed away the memories of Tessa crying from hunger, my father screaming that I was no good. I began releasing the prey from the trap, pushing away any emotions that came with it. I was 9 when I made my first kill. My father forced me with him on one of his hunts. He used to love hunting, but that was before Mother died, of course. The only thing he loved now was drinking. You don't deserve to live more than you do, he said. They die or your sister will starve to death, so pick one. I shot an arrow through its tiny body and cried for the rest of the day. How cruel life was to create something so fragile and give it no chance at surviving. A deep growl rumbled the air around me, piercing through the silence. The hair on the back of my neck stuck up. A few feet away was the largest wolf I had ever seen, eyeing the rabbit that he thought was his. He was going to attack me. Perhaps this was how I was going to die. I had to admit it. It sounded better than marriage. Easy there, I whispered under my breath. Is this what you want? I held the rabbit out between us, trying to draw the wolf's attention from me to the meat. The wolf bared its teeth and growled again. I guess he was really angry. Take it and go, I whispered again, as if he could understand what I was saying. Every inch of my body was telling me to run, but I was no fool. And I knew that wolves never traveled alone. Human footsteps on the forest floor approached from behind me. I didn't dare take my eyes off the creature. It wasn't all that rare for other hunters to run into me out here. If I was lucky, whoever it would scare the wolf away. Whoever it was would scare the wolf away. What in the saints are you doing? A deep male voice made me jump. Stop, don't move, I hissed, whipping my gaze between the towering wolf and the strange hooded man behind me. He stood with his hands in his pockets, clearly not a threat. Whatever you say, he said in a casual tone that made me even angrier than I already was. I focused back on the wolf. If I can get his attention onto the rabbit, I could throw it onto the trees and get out of here. Then I would be empty-handed. Tessa would be hungry. This will all be for nothing. It's you or me, I said to the hungry beast. I'm afraid I have a family to feed. I tucked the rabbit into my satchel and backed away slowly, which only made the wolf let out a deep, blood-curdling howl towards the sky. Low laughter filled the air behind me. I think you angered him, the man said. I kept stepping backwards away from the wolf and in the direction of the man. I didn't care. I had to deal with so many men in my life. There's nothing compared to a hungry pack of wolves. Although they often like to think otherwise. Shut up, I mumbled in his direction. The wolf stepped forward, following every move, and then another wolf followed behind it. Crap. This had to be more hiding in the bushes, and they were no longer interested in the rabbit. They wanted me. The man behind me knew it. He let out a quiet nose of satisfaction. I unsheathed the knife, holding it out in front of me. Come on then, I urged the wolf, loud enough for my audience to hear. If you're going to kill me, do it already. I didn't dare to sound that crazy. It was my last night alive anyway. If the wolf decided to attack, at least I had a chance of killing one of them before they killed me. At least my death wouldn't mean nothing. You should probably get behind me, the man said, unless you want it to be dinner for about 5 wolves. Get away from me, I snapped, continuing to step backwards. I knew I was just a few feet from him. The wolves were pushing me closer and closer. I took another step backwards, and then another. Then I took one more step, and found myself pressed against the man's chest. He didn't touch me, though. He just laughed silently. I can tell by the way his body shook against my back. The wolves didn't seem to pay any attention to him. He wasn't the one who had stolen their dinner. The third wolf came into view, snapping its jaw just a few inches from my legs. I jumped back on instinct, further into the stranger's body. Coward, I thought to myself. I twisted the knife in my hand and gripped it tightly. Would it be enough? If these wolves lunged, would my knife protect me? By the looks of it, it would require much more than that to take one of them down. Seconds later, I had no choice. The wolf lunged at me, and my body reacted without permission. I didn't cower this time. I propelled myself forward, blade out, aiming for the wolf's throat. A mixture of limbs, fur, and claws hit the floor. I was waiting for the piercing pain of teeth to impale me, but it never came. And my knife never made contact, either. An aggressive alpha growl rumbled through the still air right before strong hands pulled me from the floor, dragging me backwards. My knife slipped from my grip, but the hands kept dragging me away, and the wolves didn't follow. Are you out of your dang mind? The stranger hissed in my ear, dropping me onto the ground. You're gonna get yourself killed. I scrambled to my feet, ready to fight with my bare hands if I needed to. That knife wouldn't help me much anyway. Then I started to freeze. The wolves, who had been mere seconds away from ripping me apart, were now backing away. Each of their heads bowed and their tails now tucked between their legs. Not because of me, though. No, they were focused on the man to my left. They have never seen anything like it. As soon as the animals turned their attention onto him, the energy in the forest changed. What was he doing? He stepped forward once, and the wolves scattered completely. He must have known some secret to deter the wolves that I didn't, but that was the only explanation. That, or the fact that this man was an absolute giant. I was of average height, but this man towered over me. His wide shoulders told me that he was certainly strong enough to fight one of these beasts, if given the opportunity. What was that? I asked. I hated the way my heart was pounding in my chest. I was too close to death to be afraid of it. What did you do? The man turned to me. I saw his face for the first time. He didn't look much older than me, but he had sharp, mature features that matched the clear leanness of his body. His dark hair stuck out from under his hood, even blacker than my own. Hey, Auntie Jazzy, welcome in. And hey, Dark Bear. How y'all doing today? I was certain I had never seen him before. I would have remembered. What makes you think he can take on a pack of wolves? What makes you think you can take a pack of wolves with your bare hands? He asked, his voice dripping with anger. That's none of your business. And it wasn't with my bare hands. I was armed, I said, crossing my arms. The man laughed. Right. You were lucky I was here, or you would have been slaughtered. Excuse me? What? Do you think that excuse of a dagger is going to save you? I've seen a pack of wolves much smaller than that take down an entire lioness, sweetheart. But don't bite off anything you can chew next time. I was actually speechless. Who the saints did this guy think he was? He knew nothing about me or my experience with hunting. He continued, "Anyway, a lady should not be wandering in the forest alone after the sun goes down," he said. "It's dangerous, as I'm sure you know by now." He was still standing way too close to me, but I didn't back away. He was trying to intimidate me by the smirk, and by the smirk he wore on his face, I knew it. "Don't speak down to me," I said, rolling my shoulders backwards. "I am not a child. My family needs food, and I'm providing it. You can mind your own business next time." He laughed and shook his head. "That's a lot of confidence coming from someone who nearly just died. You're welcome, by the way." "I don't need your help," I spat. The darkness hid the embarrassment rising to my cheeks. I hoped so, at least. I turned away from the stranger and began walking towards the edge of the forest. Returning for my knife would have been no use. I wouldn't need it anymore anyway, not after tomorrow. "You provided food for your entire family?" he asked, catching up beside me. I don't know why I felt the need to answer him, but I did. "My sister, Tessa. My dad is a useless drunk. Someone has to put food on the table." A flash of something crossed his dark features, but it passed before I could identify it. "Did you make the trap yourself for the rabbits?" he asked, continuing the interrogation. How long has he been watching me? Annoyance creeped into my body. Was he serious? Following me into the forest to embarrass me, taunt me, and start casual conversation as if we're friends? "Look," I said, stopping and turning to face him. "I don't know who you are or what you're doing here, but it's probably best for us if you go home and leave me alone. And if you're a creep who thinks he can take advantage of a young woman, just know that knife isn't just for rabbits. And it wouldn't be the first time I use it on a man." I was angry. My heart was beating into my ears. But the man merely smiled in amusement, crossing his arms over his chest and leaning on the nearby tree. "Okay, Jade," he said, "I'll leave you be then. My apologies for interrupting your clearly under control hunting trip." "How do you know my name?" I demanded, stepping forward. "Who are you?" He paused and thought, as if he was debating on whether or not to answer me. "I know your name because you're marrying the Prince of Shadows tomorrow. Everyone knows your names, Jade Farrow." "That's not true," I argued. My heart sank to my stomach, dread creeping into my senses. "Nobody knows that." "You are very wrong," he said. "It's all anyone's been talking about for weeks." "You're not from around here, or I've never seen you before. How did you find out about my marriage?" He smiled in amusement again. He was taller than any man in my village, stronger than any of them, and a complete stranger. A chill ran down through me. Could he be a fae in human lands? I shook my head. No, it's impossible. He didn't even have wings. The darkness hid most of his features, but I didn't see pointed ears either. They looked normal, with a small silver piercing on his left ear. "Nervous about something?" he asked. His calmness and cockiness were doing nothing to help my growing agitation. "Yes," I answered. "I'm nervous about how darn creepy you're being. If you won't answer my question, then I suppose I'll be on my way. It was not nice to meet you, stranger." I turned to continue walking, but he pushed himself off the tree and blocked my path. "You're being sent to marry a fae prince," he repeated. It wasn't a question. I lifted my chin. My mind swarmed with possibilities of what he could want from me. Did he need me for leverage? Or did he hate the fae so much he wanted to kill anyone associated? This man might have been a stranger, but I was not going to show him fear. Not on my last day alive. No, I said, with all the confidence and power I could muster. I'm being sent to be killed by the Fae Prince. Not much of a difference, though. For the first time during this entire interaction, this man looked shocked. What? You're surprised? I asked. If you know enough to know I am being married off, then you should know that every human who marries the mysterious Prince of Shadows ends up dead. Those are rumors, he said, suddenly defensive. Maybe, I replied, but rumors start from somewhere. I have a good feeling about this. You will not die tomorrow, Jade Pharaoh. I wish you a long and happy marriage with your mysterious Prince of Shadows. His words were respectful and cordial, but I nearly laughed in his face. A marriage to the Prince of Shadows had no hope of being happy. I had no hope. Death would be easier. Sure, I said after a few seconds, whatever you say. Mal. My name is Mal. Well, Mal, I should get going. Big day tomorrow and all. I'm not sure why I kept expecting him to protest, but the tiniest amount of disappointment crept in my chest when he nodded his head and moved away so I could pass. I am sure I'll see you again soon, Jade, as he walked away. I ignored the butterflies that ignited my stomach, likely from the sudden nerves about the realization of what would happen tomorrow. Mal will never see me again. Tonight was my last night alive. So that was actually, I feel like he is the prince, I'm assuming. Mal is the man she saw in the forest. That was chapter 1. All right. All righty. Chapter 2, also called Jade. My father was awake when I made it back to the house. Not good. His slurred, temperamental voice carried into the street, followed by Tessa crying. I changed my pace into a run. What's going on? I demanded, storming through the front door. My father was clearly drunk and pacing in the kitchen. Tessa had cowered herself into a corner, arms across her body and tears streaming down her face. If he landed a finger on him, a hand on her, even a finger, I was going to kill him. Are you okay? I asked Tessa, running over to her and blocking her line of sight with my body. Did he hit you? She shook her head. Then what's going on? She opened her mouth to speak, but the only thing that came out was a stifled sob. My father shouted something behind me, mumbling something I couldn't understand. I turned my back to Tessa, but made sure to keep her protected. You should be asleep, I yelled at him. He staggered forward, shirtless, and nearly tripped over something. Don't tell me what to do, girl, he slurred as he caught himself on the kitchen table. I am your father. I will go to bed when I please. My body stiffened. You're drunk. It's late. I know how late it is, and I'm not an idiot, despite what you believe. You look down on me, treat me like garbage, but I'm the leader of this household. Show me respect, both of you. Tessa was still crying behind me. Go to your room, I whispered to her, making sure my father wasn't paying attention as she slipped by in a hurry. I hated that she saw him this way. I hated that she had to endure his behavior. I hated that after tomorrow, I wouldn't be here to help her. My father reached for a mug of ale that likely came from whatever tavern he wasted away inside all day. I grabbed the mug from his hand and slammed it back onto the kitchen table, causing liquid to splash over all of us. That's enough, I seethed. It's enough when I say it's enough, he responded, but his words strung together. Just go to sleep, I said, feeling my temper unraveling. Isn't it bad enough that you scared Tessa? Can't you just for once be a good father and not ruin everything? He considered me for a moment, then clenched his jaw. You disrespectful spoiled brat after everything I've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I asked. Please enlighten me on all the great things you've done for me. I'm dying to know, especially after I kept this family alive for years. You kept us alive, he spat. You would be nothing without me. Nothing. I taught you everything you know, child. You taught me what a deadbeat father looks like. You taught me that I have nobody in this life to count on but myself. And when I die tomorrow, which I will, it will be your fault. So thank you, Father, for everything you've done. I apologize that I have not been more grateful. I took a step towards my bedroom. You're marrying a prince, Jade, a prince. You should be thanking me. Thanking you? You want me to thank you for ruining my life? Before I can back away in time, Father slapped me hard across my face. It wasn't the first time he had hit me, but it was going to be his last. The taste of copper filled my mouth. I straightened, touching a finger to my lip and surveying the blood that dripped from it. My father didn't budge. You've always despised me, I said, lifting up my chin to face him once more. The man standing in front of me, a sloppy and drunk and barely alive, was a stranger to me. He was nothing, certainly no father. I'm not surprised at all that you made this deal to save your own skin. Just do yourself a favor and leave Tessa alone when I'm gone. It's at least you can do after ruining my life. I didn't wait for him to respond. He grunted something behind me, but I ignored him and continued to my room, shutting the door firmly behind me. The anger pounded through my ears. I rested my forehead on the wooden door and tried to breathe. We won't survive without you, Jade, Tessa whispered from our bed. She and I shared a room in a small, broken-down cottage. I didn't mind it most nights, especially when my father was as temperamental and uncontrollable as he was. I could keep her safe this way. You will, I said to her. You'll survive because you have no choice. He won't help you, so you have to do this yourself. I walked to the bed and ripped off my old torn boots. You have food. Save as much money as possible. And when you're old enough, you marry one of those nice boys in town and he'll take care of you. Do you understand? My voice was harsh, but I didn't care. Tessa had been coddled her entire life, even in this cursed town. She was about to face a fierce reality. She nodded, her eyes red from tears. Good, I said. It was the last thing I said to her for the rest of the night. She curled onto the bed beside me, sniffling silently as she drifted off to sleep. I stayed awake, however, thinking about all the things I could have rather done with my life on my last day alive. Pounding on the front door jolted me from my restless sleep. Go away, my father yelled in a sluggish, half-awake voice from somewhere within the house. My body was already buzzing with energy. I knew exactly who was at the door. It was the Fae's prince, help coming to collect his human bride. Jade Farrow, a young man yelled. We are here to take you to the compound. The compound. The magnificent Fae Palace sounded more like a prison confinement. I was already sitting up and putting on the same torn-up boots I wore every day. No, Tessa stirred awake next to me. No, not yet. It's too early. I thought we would have the morning. I looked at her and placed a hand on each of her shoulders. You have to be strong now, Tessa. Your future is up to you now. Do you understand? She nodded silently. Good. You know what to do. You'll survive. You know I will. A lie. I'll write you as soon as I can, okay? And if I'm allowed to come back to you, I will. I'll find a way to keep you safe, Tessa, but you have to hang on till then. Can you do that? Tears welled up in her giant childish eyes. Don't cry, I said sternly, before I pulled her into a quick, tight hug. Don't cry. I love you, she whispered into my shoulder. Now it was my turn to blink away tears. I love you too, Bug. Jade Farrow, the voice from the door yelled again. Coming, I hollered. the small slither of peace from hugging Tessa now gone. I stood up, not bothering to grab a change of clothes, and walked into the front door. I didn't look for my father. I didn't look back at my sister. They were on their own now, and so was I. My hand froze on the doorknob just for a moment. This was it. This was the moment my entire life's downfall began. From this moment forward, I was no longer in control. The guards would take me to the Fae's lands, and I would never be coming back. It had been a long 17 years. Life has been a stubborn bee. I'd have to give her that. Before I can cry, I swung open the door. You really can't let a woman sleep in on her wedding day, I sneered, taking in the 4 guards that stood at my door. No wings, no sparkling skin, no magical powers. They were human. That was a surprise. Apologies, miss, the younger man responded, hand over his chest. He couldn't have been more than a few years older than myself. His Majesty likes to follow a strict schedule. We wouldn't want to be late. No, I huffed, shoving past him and stepping toward the carriage that was bound to be the gossip of the entire village for the next decade. We certainly would not want to do that. One of the guards opened the small golden door to the carriage. It was quite a show, that was certain. I grabbed his hand, about to step inside when my father stumbled out the door behind me. Stop, he yelled, more coherent than I ever seen him. His voice cracked as he continued. Stop, that's my daughter, you can't take her. Father, I started. The young guard stepped in front of him, blocking his path to me. You wish to go back on the deal you made with His Majesty? My father froze. No, I thought, he can't go back on his deal. That would mean death for him, and he was much too selfish to ever do something like that. But then father looked at me. A look of pure helplessness strung across his tired features. Jade, he mouthed. I'll be okay, I said with a straight face. Take care of Tessa. Tessa chose that moment to exit the house, grabbing my father's arm. No, my father yelled again, anger flooding through the air. Jade, don't go. Please, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He was babbling now, lowering himself to his knees in a plea. Tessa was the one to comfort him at this time. Tears streamed down my father's face. I never expected this from him. From the day he informed me about the deal he made with the Fae King, I was certain he never cared about me. Apparently, I was wrong. Nonetheless, I turned my back on my family. Stepping into the gilded carriage, I didn't look back. Not as the rest of the guards mounted their horses. Not as the carriage jolted into motion. Not as my father screamed for me to come back. It wasn't until we were miles away from my house, from everything I had ever loved, and from everything I was being ripped away from, that I let the first tear fall. I didn't care that the guard crossed me in the carriage saw. I didn't care if he thought I was weak or foolish. I was walking into my death, and I didn't really care about anything anymore. Your family loves you very much, the man across from me remarked. I scoffed. Don't pretend you know anything about my life, and you don't have to play nice either. He straightened. You're going to be the new bride to the prince. The least I can do is to make your acquaintance, Lady Pharaoh. The prince, I repeated, playing with the name on the end of my tongue. So tell me, Seraphim. Tell me, Seraphim, what are the rumors true? Will I be dying today? He paused. Don't believe everything you hear, Lady Pharaoh. The royal family is very complicated. Your prince in particular. I think you'll find much of what you heard about the Fae to just be that, rumors. I considered his words. How did you come to work for them? I asked Seraphim. How do you enter the Fae lands? A wicked smile crossed his face. You believe me to be human, Lady Pharaoh? My heart pounded in my chest. It's impossible. He he looked exactly like a human. There was nothing strange about him, nothing particular, nothing fey. You're a fae? I asked, not being able to keep the shock out of my voice. Seraphim nodded. But you look glamour, he replied. His Majesty did not want to frighten you on your wedding day. He suggested we use glamour to keep our appearances human-like. He doesn't want to scare me, huh? I continued. Very hypocritical coming from a man who was rumored to kill off all of his human wives. You'll be safe, Jade, Seraphim said, losing his calm and collective composure. Your husband, well, let's say he doesn't like it when people touch his things. You'll be safe. Please don't worry yourself with believing anything other than that. A certain edge to his voice caused me to reconsider any argument I might have had. I had no idea what I was walking into, and the things Seraphim said were not helping the situation. My husband, one of the most cruel and ruthless princes of Ruith, is going to protect me? I nearly laughed out loud. I hate to do this, Lady Pharaoh, but His Majesty insists that you are asleep for the trip to Ruith. Would you mind? He asked politely, handing me a small vial of liquid. Is this going to kill me? I asked skeptically. Seraphim laughed. I sure hope not. A lot of people are looking forward to this wedding of yours. I closed my eyes and dumped the vial liquid into my mouth, swallowing it all. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I did though, would it? I asked him, passing the empty vial back. If it killed me? I didn't care if I sounded weak or pitiful. I was dreading what was coming next. To die in my sleep would be a mercy. It might have been the sudden sluggishness I felt in my senses, but I could have sworn I saw his brow furrow in concern as my own eyes drifted shut. The sound of the horse's hooves pounding repeatedly on the ground lulling me back to sleep. I was in a bed when I woke up. Correction. I was in the biggest darn bed I've ever seen in my life. Oh, good, a woman, not much older than me, sat in a chair opposite the bed. You're awake. Good thing, because we have a lot of work to do. No offense, of course. Where are we? I asked, rubbing my pounding temples. How long was I out? Just a couple of hours. The wedding starts soon, though, so up. She chirped, clapping her hands and pulling the blanket away from my body. I'm Adeline, by the way. A pleasure to meet you. I shook the small hand she held out for me. Adeline was beautiful, perhaps the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She had bright red hair that cascaded in perfect curls to her waist, contrasting against the porcelain white skin. You're Faye, yes, she said, already knowing my question. Also, your soon-to-be sister-in-law. I insisted on helping you get ready today, mostly because these maids have no sense of style, but also because you and I are going to be best friends. She smiled as best I smiled as best as I could to be polite, but it was all too much. Adeline was a fae too. So far, none of the fae I had met were monstrous, evil creatures. Seraphim and Adeline were both kind to me, unless, of course, it's all a facade. I'm marrying your brother? I asked as she pulled me into the bathroom. Please tell me everything I heard about the Fae Princess are not true. Adeline didn't even hide the pity she felt for me. Sweetie, there's a lot to learn about my brothers. If I told you everything, we would be here for weeks on end. But I'll tell you this much, she said, guiding me to a chair and sitting me in front of a large mirror. My brother isn't everything he seems on the surface. Give him a chance, he might surprise you. Oh, great, she mumbled. I can't wait. She grabbed a brush and picked up my long black hair, running it through her fingers. He'll love this too, you know. I scoffed. No offense, but I hardly care about whether or not my new captor likes the way I look. Captor? She repeated. Ruith has to be a step up from the human lands at least, no? I shook my head slowly, fighting the sudden urge to cry. I left my sister behind, and she'll die without me. She'll starve. My brother will take care of your family. The Fae aren't as cruel as humans might have told you, you know. She spoke matter-of-factly, but I wasn't entirely sure if I can trust her. I wasn't sure if I can trust any of them. Well, one good thing about Ruth's is its drink, so please drink up. We both know you're going to need it, she sang, passing me a crystal glass of clear, bubbly liquid. I had never been into drinking, mostly because of my father. But today, I would be an idiot to object. Here's a piece of advice, though, she continued. This is the same liquor that you have in your human lands, but don't drink anything else tonight. The Fae has special drinks that will be way too potent for you. So stick to this stuff. Thank you, I said, noting her warning. Really, thank you for being so nice to me. Of course, darling. You've been through enough already. Now, let's make you beautiful. It's your day, after all. She winked and tapped her glass against mine. I took a small sip of my drink. The liquid was sweet and light. It burned my stomach, but it was better than the ball of nerves I had been trying to ignore. Adeline worked through my hair for what felt like hours before moving to my face. Her touch was gentle, which I was grateful for. She didn't ask me about the scars on my back or the recent bruise on my face, although her hands worked extra carefully when she addressed those areas. She spoke to me about the traditions of a wedding in Ruth and about everything I should be expecting today. She didn't mention the fact that I might die. I didn't ask, though. Hours later, I stared at myself in the mirror. I hardly recognized myself. Adeline definitely possessed magic after all. My hair looked just as perfect as hers. Jet black instead of her fiery red. My skin was spotless. I still was pale, but she had covered every flaw, hidden every scar. I looked pretty. And my dress was more magnificent than anything I could ever imagine. It was pure gold, not white like I expected. The silk fabric hung to my thin curves, and a tight corset giving me a figure I never knew existed. I had to admit, with the exposed back and low neckline, I was showing more skin than I've ever had in my life. But as Adeline had said, the Fae world is different. She had actually called this dress modest. One last touch, she remarked, walking towards me with a white gift box. This is for you, from your future husband. My stomach sank. How generous, I mocked, lifting the lid to the box. My jaw nearly dropped when I saw what was inside. It was a knife. A black, perfectly wielded steel knife with a delicate artistic handle. Emotions filled my chest. Do you like it? Adeline asked. It's perfect. It's actually absolutely perfect. And I meant that. I didn't realize how exposed I would feel without the knife I had lost with the wolves last night. It was a massive upgrade. Well, I suppose I can't send you to the vipers without some sort of protection. Just promise me you won't use it on me, she joked. I laughed with her and hiked up my dress. Adeline helped me strap it inside my thigh, as if a simple blade would protect me from the Fae. I took a deep, shaky breath. You're ready? She chirped. I'm sure everyone is dying to meet you. I smiled and nodded. Am I allowed to say no? She laughed and hooked her arm through mine. You'll be fine, she insisted. But a piece of sisterly advice? Don't trust the other brothers. I love my family, but the boys have minds of their own, especially when it comes to wives. The last part I knew. Seraphine said the prince would keep me safe. Is that true? I asked. She thought for a moment before answering. If my brother is around, you'll be the safest human in the kingdom. I let go of a breath I was holding. Adeline seemed genuine enough. If she was warning me against the other princes, at least she wouldn't She was entirely full of crap. Can I ask you something, Adeline? Of course you can. What is it? If this goes badly, if I die today, will you take care of my sister? My family, I mean. They need food. They need money. Yes, Jade, of course I will. You mustn't worry about it anymore, okay? You have my word. Besides, everything will go perfectly. I blinked once. Well, I hope you're right. We walked through the massive stone hallways, our heels clicking to the porcelain against the porcelain floors in dreadful unison. I tried not to stare at the pure magnificence of the compound. The walls, which were so tall, I had to bend my neck to view the top, were covered in artistically crafted black molding and green vines. Every detail was created with perfection. The vines weaved across the walls as we walked, arching around every massive window that let in a perfect amount of sunlight. It was beautiful. Beautifully horrific, I muttered myself. These walls were my jail cell, as gorgeous as they may be. This compound was no haven. It was filled with evil and torture and malice. It housed the worst family in the entire kingdom. Adeline walked me to a pair of massive black doors. My future husband and the rest of the Fae were on the other side. I could feel it in my bones. I took a deep breath and rolled my shoulders back. If the Prince of Ruith thought he was going to get another ignorant human wife who would kneel before him and thank him for killing her, he was terribly wrong. I wasn't going out that easily. The massive doors swung open. You'll be fine, Adeline whispered to me. I'll find you after the ceremony. I nodded to her, but I was frozen where I stood. Hundreds of people filled the ballroom, everyone now staring directly at me. I forced myself not to shiver, now very aware of how much skin I was showing. I kept my eyes on the floor directly in front of me. The room was silent, and I was certain that everyone could hear how fast my heart was pounding. They could hear that stuff, right? Well, it didn't matter. Keep moving forward, I told myself. Move forward and stay alive. I walked down the aisle, my gold dress flowing behind me, until I arrived in front. Well, come up here, girl. We don't have all day, one of the men at the altar said. Eventually, I had to look. I had to lift my head and lay my eyes on the Fae Prince. That was going to ruin my life. But not yet. Jade, a softer, familiar voice said. This caused me to finally lift my gaze. I have heard that voice before. When I met his eyes, I nearly vomited. Standing in front of me, waiting for me to arrive at the end of the aisle was Mal. No, not Mal, the Prince of Ruith, the Prince of Shadows, my soon-to-be husband. Okay, so I knew it. That makes sense. Hey, Butter, welcome in. Yeah, I kind of knew that that was Mal was going to be the prince, so that was pretty predictable for sure. Let me see. I was like, who is it? I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be Mal, the Fae Prince. All right, let me see. I'm trying to see how long All right, 1 second, y'all. Oh, okay. So I've been live for almost an hour. I'm trying to see how long the next chapter would be. I don't know if I should stay here. Oh, it's pretty short. Okay, I'll read the last chapter and then I'll wrap up. This is pretty short. Okay, chapter 3. This is Jay's perspective. So I kind of see that the chapters basically tell you who's talking. So it's in first person. So each chapter will tell you who's talking, whether it's Jade or Malachi. So this is still in Jade's perspective. Chapter 3. The king and queen sat on a pair of thrones next to us. This was a guess, but considering the golden crowns they wore, I assumed it was a pretty good guess. Prince Malachi, the king growled from his throne. Please take your beloved by both hands. My heart was racing. Mal was Prince Malachi? Mal. Prince Malachi was Fae? Not just any fae, a fae prince, my fae prince, the Prince of Shadows. Don't worry, Malachi whispered with a smile, clearly noticing my hesitation. It'll be over soon. Over soon? Was he talking about the ceremony or my life? He held his hands out, inviting me to take them. If I declined, they would certainly kill me on the spot. The way the king was looking at me confirmed it, like he was waiting for me to make a mistake so he can end my useless human life. I took Malachi's hands. They weren't as cold as I expected. They were large and warm, and he held me gently, as if he wanted to give me some space. I tried to keep my hands still, but couldn't help the mild shaking. His respect was a facade. I knew enough to know that he was fae. However kind they may seem on the surface, they're creatures of malice. Especially the Prince of Shadows. Jade Pharaoh, the king said, standing from his throne, approaching us. Malachi's hands tightened around mine, just barely. His shoulders stiffened as his father approached. Let me be the first one to formally welcome you to Ruith. As I am sure you've heard, these lands are precious to us. Generations of fae have lived and died to protect the very land you stand on today. I held back an eye roll. If he really intended to preach to me about how noble the fae of Ruith were, he can hold his breath. I knew better than to listen to any of them. You were not the first human to enter the compound, and likely will not be the last, he continued. Yet my son remains in need of a human wife who will bring together our lands and create peace across all Ruith. Your duty here is not just that of the Prince Malachi's wife, but as a leader to our people. One of the men standing behind Malachi, his brother I assumed, laughed. I turned my attention to the brothers. They looked nothing like Malachi. He was tall and sculpted with dark hair and brooding shoulders. His siblings were lighter in both color and muscle. They looked young, and based on their appropriate laughter, I assumed that they were just as immature as they looked. Prince Malachi, the king said, turning my attention back to him, Jade Pharaoh stands here to become your wife. It is your duty to protect her with your life. It is your duty to honor her as you would your own, and it is your duty to fulfill these vows as long as you both live. More laughter erupted behind us. Heat flushed my cheeks. The king continued, Do you agree to uphold these values for the future of Ruith? He asked. Yes, Malachi responded without a second hesitation. The king turned to me. His eyes were an electric blue, almost shocking to look at, but there was something cold in his gaze, something fae. A chill ran down my spine. Lady Pharaoh, he addressed me. As wife to Prince Malachi and Princess of Ruith, it is your duty to honor and protect Prince Malachi. It is your duty to honor this wedding agreement, and it is your duty to lead our people as you would your own for as long as you both live. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was all happening way too fast. Do you agree to uphold these vows? I looked away from the king and back to Prince Malachi, my soon-to-be husband. He was shockingly handsome, that much I could not deny, but his gaze was harsh and evil. He had seen and done some terrible things. He would do terrible things again, and he would likely do terrible things to me. But I made it all the way here. I had to do this for Tessa, I reminded myself. And frankly, I had no choice. Any one of these fays could kill me in a heartbeat. I blushed when I realized I had been staring, but I did not look away. He smirked as if I knew I was thinking. I was not going to show him weakness. He wanted a scared, submissive human that would bow down to anything these fays said. I was not going to be that wife. I was not going to be that human. Yes, I said strongly. Malachi almost looked shocked. He didn't move a muscle. I kept my chin high, even as the brothers continued to giggle and snicker. I saw the way they stared at the exposed skin on my body, and yet I did not move to cover it. I was not going to die as a weak little girl. Excellent, the king said, pulling a small knife and grabbing Malachi's closest hand from mine. The king roughly sliced Malachi's skin, blood rushing to the surface. He grabbed my hand next, skin as cold as ice, and did the same. Despite my best efforts, I flinched at the pain that stung my hand. The blood pooled in my palm, and the king clasped both our hands together. The blood flowed together down my finger into the floor. Jade Pharaoh, princess, welcome to Ruith, the king said. Before I could object, he grabbed my face with both hands and planted a harsh, nasty kiss on my cheek. I was frozen. Bile rose in my throat. If this was any type of wedding tradition that the Fae followed, I am not a fan. Especially when his wandering hands found the skin on my bare back. Just as panic began to set in, Malachi grabbed my shoulders and pulled me backwards away from the king's grasp. I opened my mouth to object to whatever the saints had just happened, but Malachi squeezed my shoulder. A warning. You must learn to share, Father, Malachi said. Share. This elicited more laughter from the brothers, but something dark and hateful laced each of his words. I dared to glance at the queen, who sat silently with a bored look on her face. The king laughed. You can't blame a man for noticing beauty, he retorted. And you should be thanking me for finding such a human as stunning as this. This time. Now, Prince Malachi, he said, gathering his composure once more, kiss your wife and let the party begin. I can still feel the king's lips on my skin. I couldn't do it again. I wouldn't let them defile me in this way. But Prince Malachi was my husband now. This kiss was going to be the last of my worries. Malachi stepped forward, coming mere inches from my face. I prepared myself for the worst, but felt relieved when he simply placed a quick, feather-like kiss on my lips. I suppose it was better than the king's kiss, but I could still feel my cheeks flushing pink. Cheers of applause erupted in the room. I had completely forgotten about the hundreds of Fae witnessing the ceremony. Certainly they were all there for the food and booze the Fae were rumored to indulge in. Malachi placed a hand on my lower back. Stay by my side, he whispered, close to my ear. Loud enough for only me to hear. I gave him a small nod of acknowledgement and let him guide me back down the aisle I just had come from. Except now, I was not just a human girl in the Fae world. I was the wife of Rua's Prince of Shadows. Had the other wives survived this long? Or was this just when they were all killed? It didn't matter. There was nothing I can do here with hundreds of Fae through the crowd and out the giant doors. Oops. There's nothing I could do here with hundreds of Fae surrounding me. I held my chin high and kept a straight face as Malachi led us through the crowd and out the giant doors. As the doors were closing, I heard the king make a muffled announcement, which cued a loud chorus of music and even more cheers from the crowd. The doors boomed shut behind us. We were alone in the hallway. He dropped his hand from my back and paced to a large window near us, running his hands through his dark hair. I assessed the situation. The knife was still strapped to my thigh. If I aimed perfectly, I had a chance to stab his heart. But would it kill him? I doubted it. And it wasn't worth the risk. I had to survive the night, and then I'll wait my escape. But what about Tessa? Our deal would be broken if I ran away. She would starve if I didn't make it home alive. No, there was only one way to survive this. And it was to be the darn human priestess of Ruith. Princess of Ruith. Mal, I said, breaking the silence. He spun around to face me, leaning against the window's edge. Do not be afraid, I told myself. You came to see me yesterday. Why? Why didn't you tell me who you were? His eyes scanned my body, pausing at the busted lip Adeline had poorly attempted to conceal. What happened? He hissed. The fierceness of his voice almost made me step back. I fought the urge to cover my lip. Nothing, I said, touching a finger to the painful area. I wasn't about to unfold what happened with my father last night. I had larger issues here. His eyes squinted like he was about to call me out for the lie. I spoke before he had a chance to ask. Answer my question. Why were you in the forest yesterday? Fae aren't supposed to be in the human lands. He scanned my body once more before meeting my own. I'm not allowed to see my wife before I married her. Heat creeped up my neck at the way he stared at me. I assumed you wouldn't care much anyway, I said. I hated how weak it sounded, but I stood my ground anyway. If I was going to die tonight, I wanted to dig up as much information as possible. Your wives never lived that long anyway, right? How long until you tired of me too? His eyes grew dark, and he pushed himself off the window's ledge, coming so close I could feel his breath on my cheek. It was the same dominance I saw from him in the forest yesterday against the wolves. Let me get one thing straight here, princess. My other wives would have been killed, yes. No, my other wives have been killed, yes, but not by me. My eyes widened. Shocked, he challenged? Yes. Surprised that the deadly feral Prince of Shadows is not killing each one of his wives after they are wed? A low, evil laugh rumbled in his chest. You have a lot to learn, Jade. And we're about to spend evenings with hundreds of drunk, idiotic fae who haven't seen a human in decades. If he was trying to scare me, it was working. So do yourself a favor and stay by my side. Don't trust any of them. And hold on to that little toy strapped to your leg, he said, eyes flickering down my dress once more. You are not safe here, princess. But I am not losing another wife. I don't care how many fae buttholes it costs me. There's curse words in here, so I can't say that. He stopped talking, but he didn't back away. I stood there, staring into his dark, passionate eyes. That's good to know, I admitted after a few awkward seconds. I couldn't believe he was talking about the other fae, his family, in this way. From what I could tell, he despised them, especially his brothers. Malachi broke our gaze first, following back to the massive doors of the ballroom. When he held his hand out to me, I took it. A bit of advice, he said, do not drink anything. Malachi pushed the large doors open once more, and we were greeted by the same group of fae. Except things have certainly gotten rowdy in the few minutes we were out of the room. Music flowed through the massive ballroom, echoing off the stone walls. The reserved audience from earlier was now standing, dancing, and drinking away. Never-ending tables of food lined the perimeter of the room, and servants walked around with trays of drinks for every guest. Malachi navigated us through the crowd. The others had a large level of respect for him, bowing their heads as he passed. Part of me wondered if they were just as afraid of him as the humans were. What has he done to gain this reputation? How many people has he killed, tortured, tormented? I shook my head. None of these mattered now. What mattered was getting out of here alive. And Malachi was my best chance at that. I squeezed his hand tighter, hoping he wouldn't realize how nervous I was. I was the only human in the entire room, perhaps even in this entire compound, and I was going to find out just how much Faye hated humans after all. And that was chapter 3. This is pretty good. I'm very curious how it's going to turn out. There are like 5 books in this series, so if we like this book, then we might continue, or we might try another book. So we'll see. But yeah. Well, that was fun. So I do go live every day pretty much except Monday at 10 o'clock Eastern. And so tomorrow we'll be playing Coral Island with some more thunderstorm, relaxing ASMR. And then on Friday, we'll read some more of this book, a couple more chapters of this book. I plan to alternate between like reading of the book and then also of playing games in a comfy, cozy way. And then on Sunday, I will do an hour long, just ASMR. No mic stream, just come relax before Sunday, before the week starts. The purpose of the Sunday stream just to help you relax and kind of get your mind together for the upcoming week. So thank you guys for hanging out with me and listening to me read. I hope you enjoyed it. I think the story is pretty good, so I look forward to seeing how things end up and work out. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end stream here, and I will see you guys tomorrow for some Coral Island and some rainy, comfy, cozy ASMR. All right, I hope you rest well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.